All right, welcome and thanks again for your patience here for the folks in the room and then also online. I'll go ahead and open up the City of North Plains City Council regular session meeting. Monday, October 21st, 2024 at 7:07. Please stand for the pledge of
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mayor Linehan? Here. Councilor Kendall?
Here.
Councilor Martinez? Here. Councilor Papen?
Here.
Thank you. Councilor Shelvin?
Present.
Councilor Smith?
Here.
And Councilor Page is excused this evening. Thank you, Lori. Consent agenda. This evening, we have the approval of October 21st, regular session agenda. And also the approval of October 7th city council minutes. Are there any corrections or additions to minutes that we need to be aware of? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda for us tonight.
Second. All right, we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion carried. All right. Next up is public comment. This is the time that we encourage any from the public to speak on items that are not on the agenda. Lori, do you have anything filled out?
I didn't receive anything prior to the meeting.
Okay, anyone online with their hands up?
No,
Okay. All right.
and nobody filled out a card tonight, so.
All right, great, thank you. Next up is our staff night. This is the time that we get to hear from our awesome staff. And Robin, you're right for this.
I know this is me because this is Debbie Brody. Good evening, Mayor Linehan and councilors. Today is the wonderful kickoff of Friends of the Library Appreciation Week. And so all week, we're appreciating our friends of the library with some treats and flowers and our logo mug that we have with the library logo. I'll just say that because of our Friends of the Library fundraising, we are able to purchase 25% more materials for checkout every year and offer more events and programs for all ages. And also this year, they started a $2,000 scholarship for staff for professional development.
So nice.
They are above their projections for fundraising this year. They had their board meeting last Monday. And really appreciate their support.
They must have had a wonderful book sale this August.
They did have a good book sale. It wasn't a record-breaking amount, but if you will recall, we didn't have the sale for a few years due to the pandemic, and so they had quite a large book sale coming out of that was record-breaking, and this is a little more typical, but and they do online sales of donated items all year, and that fundraising also contributes. Yeah, that was my main announcement. You'll see a lot of fun things coming up on the city calendar, and in my report, I highlighted our new homeschool meetup that we're having. But our community engagement specialist has been creating some wonderful partnerships around town. And we'll be attending our trunk or treat. 2 library staff will be attending trunk or treat this week.
Good. And Brianna's 3 years.
3 years as our librarian,
Yeah.
and many or other years part-time as a library assistant before that.
No, that's really great.
Yeah.
Anyone have questions? Mr. Smith?
I attended the
Mhm.
library board, so I'll bring up a couple of things later on my report.
Okay, sounds great. Can't see you, but Council David?
No, thank you so much.
Okay. Anyone else?
No, I guess, just want to know, with it getting a little cooler, how's the furnace working?
Awesome. It's quiet as a mouse, heat's great. Thrilled with the work that Ellis Mechanical did for the library.
Great, thank you.
Yeah,
Fine. Thanks, Robin.
thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Next up, Chief Jones.
Good evening, Mayor and city councilors. You got the time.
We know who you are.
You know,
Maybe
sometimes I wonder, I think put it this way. All right, so we all saw my staff report. Stats are in there. I included Q3 kind of crime map and just years comparisons for the third quarter of the year. Nothing really too exciting to highlight there. More importantly, I just wanted to talk about a couple highlights included in my staff report. We have some community engagement coming up. We are, along with the library, are attending the trunk or treat on Friday. We'll have a little booth there, handing out some candy. And we're gonna be making available some light up bracelets for kids for trick or treating, some nice LED kid-sized bracelets they can wear when they're out trick or treating in the dark, a little safety thing there to take with them. So we're looking forward to that. We also wanted to highlight some efforts done by Deputy Schutz. It feels like a bit of a repeat from April. We talked about this back then and gave him kudos, but another round of applause is due for Deputy Schutz and some really hard work that he's been putting in to a problem property we've identified for quite a while on Iron Ridge. As y'all probably are aware, we had a warrant service there about a week and a half or so ago. Included about 50 members of collectively of our county SWAT team, negotiators, drone operators, and just patrol folks serving originally was a arrest warrant for a subject that was wanted and barricaded in the structure, turned into a search warrant when there was some evidence of some narcotics distribution at the location. And so Deputy Schutz has been diligent and just relentless on trying to kind of get this place under control for the neighbors. And I do really thank him for his efforts kind of addressing that livability concern in that area. As a result, we're working on a press release that should come out this week with some more information to share with the public, but just overall totals, on that search alone, it took about 175 grams of narcotics out of that house in 8 different varieties and forms. And so it was pretty significant event for us here in town. And again, it just goes to speak to Deputy Schutz. It's just tenacity and efforts in addressing that problem. So for that, we should thank him when we see him. Along with planning, we've been addressing some ongoing code enforcement issues across the city, from parking concerns, not only on public streets, but in some flag lot issues. We've been dealing with Steve, the planning manager, kind of trying to troubleshoot some of those the best we can and kind of put our heads together. And then you probably noticed it came up last month, but they actually have been installed. The 40-mile-per-hour speed signs are out on West Street. Probably. So they're there. We'll patiently start enforcing those as people kind of become accustomed to the speed reduction in the area. But with that, that's all I have to report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'll start. So you've been kind of patrolling that area since you put the sign up, correct?
Yes.
And how many people are you kind of warned so far?
If I'm being perfectly honest, it's speed, I think, has been more of a perceived issue or like a one-off issue in that area more often than not. Our radar, I'll run my moving radar as I'm driving around, and I rarely am getting anybody over, 47, 48 miles an hour on the regular. And so I think it's an occasional thing with a car here and a car there. It'll sing, where's a cop when you need one, right? And the guy's going 55. So I have not pulled anybody over since those new signs been on that road for speed.
And then, maybe I'm missing something here. I see a map here with circles on the different colors. Is there a code for those?
Yes.
Or am I missing it?
No, there is, it's just not on there. It's supposed to be, the one that's supposed to go in there, I will send you an updated one with those. But as, I can't remember exactly what colors are what. I know green is traffic accidents, but outside of that, the rest are gonna be property crimes, like a theft, a burglary, a criminal mischief, usually like a tagging or graffiti kind of thing. That's what that map will indicate. So I'll send you out one that's got the legend attached. My apologies for that.
And then one last one. There's been 2 people riding around on mini bikes.
Mhm.
Has anything else come up about it?
I've heard of that before, but I've not heard that recently. So
I
I don't,
saw them from a distance.
yeah.
There's 2 guys.
I've heard of some kids doing it like that, but I felt like that was a few months ago. I've not heard anything recently about that. So,
Okay,
I can't speak to that, I guess, right now, but I
I'd
can
be
guess.
assuming that somebody knows who it is. When
I'm
they're
sure.
making that kind of loud noise.
On the street, I thought, last I heard, there could have been some farm property.
They're on the street.
Okay,
It kind of blew by me. I heard them coming.
okay. It's good to know. In your neighborhood or on West Union?
No, it was in basically phase 1, and they went to phase 2 through some streets.
Okay,
So I'm not sure how I don't think it's legal at all, so.
yeah, some of those aren't, yeah. Okay, thank you for that.
Sir Peterson, do you have anything for Chief Jones?
Thank you. I just had a quick question for Chief Jones. Maybe you can help me understand and make sure I'm reading this correctly. When I'm going through the packet, I noticed the contract deputy activities, and those are just the contract deputy. So yourself and the other 2 deputies, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And the reason why I'm asking is I noticed that there is kind of this, and I also just want to preface and say I know that traffic stops are not the entirety of a deputy's role, but I just noticed that it looks like for the month of September there were no citations issued and 27 traffic stops. So we're doing less than 1 traffic stop a day. And it just doesn't necessarily correlate with some of the feedback I'm hearing from residents that there's opportunities with, speeding and 4-way stop enforcement and just really, minor, but also significant traffic issues within town. And I just wanted to maybe understand a little bit more about that. Because when I look at the calls for everyone in the city, there's 3 citations that were issued by deputies that are not our contract ones. Is that right?
Yeah, so first off, I will say that there's always room for improvement on traffic enforcement. That's always like, if there's nothing else to do, there's always traffic enforcement to do. So there's always room to enforce more traffic laws for sure. Some jurisdictions have full-time traffic teams. That's all they do because it's such an enforcement burden, if you will. So yes, you're absolutely right. There's always room to improve on traffic enforcement. And comparing the numbers, as far as you're looking at the first contract deputies activities, those are activities done by our North Plains deputies and myself across North Plains and the county. So sometimes we'll assist outside of the city a little bit. The second set of numbers is the calls that are actually in the city, whether they're handled by North Plains contract deputies or county deputies outside of what our normal patrol hours are here in town. So that's kind of the difference between those 2 graphs. To address your question about the diminished number of traffic stops for the month of September, I would just draw your attention to on the same graph where it's deputy activities. If you look at the first column, it's ours, it stands for reports. It's up 4 more since the previous month. And then if you look at the public demand, we're up, I think, was that roughly 15 without, counting on my fingers here, from the previous year. So kind of what that tells me when I look at numbers is, yeah, traffic stops are low, but some of the public demand calls and the reports and these calls for service take more time for the deputies to investigate and do some of these kind of more thorough investigations that they get outside of traffic stops. So yeah, I would like our traffic stop numbers to be higher, but when I look at that kind of the whole picture look at what the activity over the month was, it shows that they are doing more, there was more public demand calls for service, there's more reports written, therefore the time was kind of justified doing those other more in-depth tasks that take much more time than a traffic stop. If that makes sense.
It does, and I appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
One question. On the Iron Ridge Place. And speaking of code enforcement, is that a homeowner's property or is it a renter's property?
That is a homeowner's property. It was originally, an elderly woman owned it, lived there with her adult, or middle-aged, daughter, and then her adult son, so adult grandson. The elderly woman that owned it originally has passed about 2 years ago, 2 summers ago, so it's working its way kind of through the estate, the probate, the whole, court process. So it's an owner occupied property.
Okay,
And one of the challenges there is, that's a private road. It's
Right.
not a city road, so it kind of ties a little bit on some of those livability enforcement options we have in that area anyway.
right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes,
Nick, a statement and then give you an opportunity with mayor's blessing to respond. You and I talked recently about that search warrant that was served. And it involved several dozen police officers who were primarily sheriff's office people, but there are others. And we have in this county and throughout the state, counties organize what's called mutual aid. And in the event of a call for service, you might get somebody from Hillsborough or Banks, maybe even Beaverton if it's a big event. And when you look at the number of police officers that responded to that house and with the level of crime that they have found, dealing with crime is not inexpensive, it's very expensive. And if you have a few dozen police officers responding to one event, they're either getting paid overtime or they're taken away from their regular duties. And it just more pointing out that we're fortunate to be contracting with the sheriff's office because of their deep bench and ability to provide specialized services. But just the idea that I think the city's done a wonderful job with a very limited number of officers. But we also, in a larger city like Beaverton, we had a traffic unit. We were part of a countywide narcotics team. I mean, I probably need to tell you and some others about it, but so the public understands dealing with, and even comment to Councilor Papen, who asked some very thoughtful questions. When you take people away from their regular job to do something like this, serve a warrant, and you find a high level of crime in there, it takes a goodly number of people for safety for the deputies, neighbors, etc. And over time, the city has tried to grow its law enforcement services and wasn't able to. And this is an observer from somebody who's been here almost 6 months and will soon not serve as interim city manager. But I think the city's done a really commendable job, but it appears there's more need as the city is growing and crime changes and needs change in a community. And I think the city gets good marks for the work that it's done, but crime isn't cheap, basically. And in the end, it takes next people away from what they're doing to be responsive around an event like that one arrest process.
And to your point, if you don't mind, just what it takes leading up to get to the point where we're able to have the impact on the Iron Ridge property. I can't even count the hours that Deputy Schutz has put in reviewing surveillance footage, interviewing neighbors, building rapport with businesses, and just being able to identify like livability patterns and all these concerns and the effort that goes into build this case in order to make this even happen and address this. I mean, we don't even track it. I couldn't even give you a good estimate. It's intense, it's labor intensive, and he's been working on it since the last one in April, right? And so, there's a lot, you're absolutely right. There's a lot that goes into it, not only the event itself and what that takes to do it safely, but the lead up to it and the investigation that it takes, just day in and day out, just to get there.
well, and you commented about the livability on that street, and I think that's one thing that I think about, and the families, or, how many children are on that street. And, it is a private road. I know that we have restrictions there, right, with private roads. But, what are the folks on on that street doing, you know, to feel safe or to keep their children safe? And I don't know if you can speak to that at all.
Well, I can tell you, there's been, a lot of collaboration with those neighbors and Deputy Schutz. He's over years of him being here, just built the relationship with these people and knowing this has been a long, ongoing problem with that particular location, he's just taken the time just to be there, be available, be a phone call or email away to them if they have a concern, and he takes all that stuff seriously, and he's just bulldog on a bone with it, and is really, taking it to heart as kind of a really, kind of a project that he's focused a lot of time on, and part of that was building the relationship and the networks with the neighbors that have the concerns, and just hearing them, listening to them, being available to them, and knowing that building the trust that he's putting some effort. You know, it's not just lip service. He's actually taking what they're saying seriously, taking it to note, writing reports, doing the investigations, running things to ground, and turning the rocks to kind of make it happen.
Is it shut down? Like, or is there someone still living in the house?
There are still people coming in and out of the location. The one person taken into custody from this is still in custody, but
Thank you, Mayor.
more to come.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Next up, Dustin.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. So looking through my notes here, I don't have a whole lot to add to what I had already written out to y'all. I just wanted to say congratulations to Javier and completing this 5-year water system survey. We do not have the official results from that survey, but word of mouth is that we got another outstanding. And so I'm just kind of holding off really to actually say, yes, we got an outstanding and announce it to the world until we get the official results. But that's kind of the word that we are getting. And Javier worked really hard to be able to get that. And with that, the lead copper rule, that inventory was complete. We finished it about 2 weeks before the deadline, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. And so that kind of relieves the crew to be able to go on to other things. Like one of the things that we're working on now is prepping for leaf pickup season, which is going to be coming up really soon. And we're trying to adjust it and make it better every year. And we're just making little tweaks here and there. This year, I'm hoping it's gonna be a good year for leaf pickup season, but we're gonna be short one man, more or less, because we have Cody, who is our lead operations tech, is going to be going to CDL training. And so that's gonna kind of leave us a little shorthanded, so we're gonna do our best in the meantime.
So residents, be patient.
Patient, we'll get there.
We'll get there.
We'll get there, but we've got a good crew on our hands. And let me see, what else do we got? I listed some of our CI projects. We're basically in substantial completion for a lot of projects right now. It's just the punch list season where it's once a contractor leaves for the majority of the project, it's hard to get them back for those little teeny tiny things. And so we just don't pay them the retainage until they actually finish the job. And so that kind of puts us in a little bit of a bind with, you know, like Washington LET for, you know, trying to get some of these maintenance bonds, everything cleared and the permits cleared. But other than that, we're just kind of waiting on these little itty bitty items on some of these projects. With that, we are almost done with the new public works facility. Barring, you know, no more surprises or anything like that. But hopefully we'll be moved in sometime in November. We're not in a rush. We still have some minor things that we need to work on, like getting our SCADA system up and running and some just minor in-house kind of things, like how are we going to move stuff from the public works facility that we have right now, it's just a shop, and over here, just kind of some of these transitionary type of things. So we're probably not going to be fully moved in, I would guess, for another 6 to 12 months. It's going to take a little bit of time. So we've got, you know, a full workload on top of that, so we'll adjust. Let me see. going down to, I'll go down to the aquifer storage recovery. We had the work session, before this meeting, and there's so much that is involved in that. And I know it probably could be another 1 or 2 work sessions if we need to. And if you have any questions, please let me know, because I know there's a lot of residents out there who have questions, and I've been bombarded by questions. Like one, specific question that I get, on a multiple basis is, why don't you just build another well? And so this whole ASR feasibility study, which, by the way, people who are listening in, is that we got a grant for this study to be able to figure out what we're going to do with our water system in the future. We are, there's a reason why the ASR is a better option than some others. And I think that as we do more work sessions, we'll kind of get into that and, kind of get in the meat and potatoes of why. And hopefully, I can get this document that we had during that work session. It's on the website, but I will try to make it easier to find and maybe put some more information, for people to kind of research on their own.
Their PowerPoint was really nice. Maybe we can have a copy of that as well.
Okay.
I can send that to all of you tomorrow and,
And have it available online.
yeah, and I can put it even like under a news, the front
Yeah.
page news. We can put your documents there too.
Working on a lot of different things with some new capital projects coming in the next couple of years. One thing that got brought up in the Parks Board was talking about the landscaping around Jesse Mays and the perimeter, because the project, I don't want people to get ahead of themselves, but it is not a sidewalk project and we're tearing down trees. It is a infrastructure improvement to improve some water lines in some area, and also to add some storm drainage, because this area is prone to flooding, especially by the substation area over here. And over here by the parking lot. So we're working on some flooding issues. And that's also one of the reasons why it's taking so long for the railroad permit, is because that storm line is going down 311 and it has to go underneath the railroad, and there's some work with the railroad that is going along there, and that's why that is taking so long. But with the trees and everything, I got with 3J and we're gonna get a bunch of designs ready. And hopefully by the next Parks Board, and just kind of get it out in the open in the public, say, hey, what do we like? Some of these trees, I mean, they have to go. Unfortunately, some of them are dying, disease, they falling. Right before Elephant Garlic Festival, I had to have crews come out and tear down 2 trees and really get into one of them, just because of the branches were unsafe, and we're trying to make it a safe environment for the park. And so we're looking ahead of how we can beautify the space. And one of the things that I've directed 3J is there's a parks grant that is also available for open spaces and stuff. I'm going to try to go really hard for that grant as well. And also there are some different memorialization options where people can potentially memorialize a tree. So there's a lot of great things that could be happening with this park in the future. And hopefully that'll be something great for the community and to kind of stand behind.
And so if folks are really interested in that, they really need to stay dialed into the Parks Board agenda and their meetings to be able to give feedback and learn more.
Absolutely. Let me see what else do we have here. To kind of piggyback on some of the traffic issues, the signs on West Union, which I need to preface, Glencoe and West Union are county roads. And so these are projects that are done by the county, and sometimes they do things without telling us. We were aware that they were going to do it, but we also did not know they're going to do it that quickly. And one of the things that I've talked with 3J, and he has some connections with the Washington County engineer, is maybe perhaps we can have some flags or something installed on the new 40 mile an hour, just to kind of, hey, warning, this is a new change in traffic. And so that's going to be something that we're trying to get done, as well as the stop signs at Glencoe and West Union. I'm getting a lot of reports of people running those stop signs, but once again, that's a county road and our engineering department is basically getting with LUT to say, hey, can either we install some flashing beacons or can they do it? And how's that gonna work? And so we're working on some of those issues kind of in the background. Just to kind of make it, you know, a safer drive around here. Let me see, what else is there? I think that's about it. One of the other things I'm working on, I know Chief Jones kind of gave you his heat map of everything. One of the things I've been working on in the past year, and it takes a while. We use Diamond Maps for our asset management system, and it shows our whole system, our water, like how our water lines are, our streets, like everything, but it's not open to the public. But one of the things that we're trying to do slowly is like put all of our work orders on there and just kind of show like we have our own hotspots. And so I think that might be a neat little thing that whenever we start getting a little more into working with that, I can provide you with like maps of, hey, this is what we've been doing, because I can't just say, hey, my guys are busy. No, this is like my guys are doing all these different tasks and everything. I'll have something to show for it. But I'm hoping to have that, ready by December or so, but we're kind of having some issues, technical difficulties with Diamond Maps. It's kind of like it's a cheap version of some of the GIS systems that the larger cities use, so we've got to work around it. But we're doing the best that we can. Other than that, I'm open for questions.
Do you get a lot of inquiries on a daily basis from the public about what you do?
I get probably 2 or 3, but then I also get some on the side where people notify me of what's happening on Facebook, because I do not get on Facebook. And one of the things that I've been considering is, do we even need to get a public works Facebook page? Because no one is utilizing the online reporting system that I have. It's all phone calls. Or emails. Most of them go to either me or to our info. And I'm like, that's not the best way for us to get some of these requests. And so I'm wondering, it's like, maybe if everybody's on Facebook, if I have a Public Works Facebook account or something like that, be able to go on there and be able to kind of troubleshoot some of these, hot button topics that come up. And it's just, hey, this is straight from, the Public Works Director kind of thing, or here's where we can, go on to the webpage and just leave it like really easily, because I'm trying to stay away from the community page, discussions a lot of times.
That's good, because you are very busy and you have other very important things to be doing instead of probably being in front of the community page, although it's really important to also communicate with the public, but you've got to find obviously that time to be able to do that and prioritize your day and week. I know that you guys are doing a great job. And so I really appreciate you.
We're always trying to find ways to make things better.
Sure. Any questions for Dustin? Councilor Smith?
Just a couple. Is there a plan for a walkthrough with city council on the new public works building?
We will do a walkthrough closer to time when we move in, and it could be maybe sometime in mid to late November. I don't have a specific time frame, but we're supposed to get closeout certificate of occupancy either by the end of the month or the 1st of November.
And the other thing is,
I think we were even talking about an open house for the public too.
that's what I was
Right.
bringing the public in for an open house.
Yeah, for everyone.
But then I was going by the veterans park the other day and I saw a pile of gravel. Is that?
That,
Gravel.
that's from,
It's gone.
yeah, that was from Global.
Oh, okay, Global and the
Those
Conex, yeah, I think they
Connexes, and
were.
they're all gone. I
That was
believe.
more of a planning issue. I think Steve was on top of that, but they had Connexes that they were moving to their private property as opposed to the property that they owned there. And I guess they must have left the office.
November Veterans Day is coming up and I think somebody's working on that already.
They're all
Right.
right. It's
Huh?
I think it's clear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilor Payton?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much.
Only thing I can think of, Dustin, those trees are probably near 40 years old. out around the, when you have Gary George replanted those, got them from the nursery and they were free. They look like they're getting their lifetime, livability. I mean, are they rotten or what, when they fall or what happens to them? Or they just break from the limbs?
From
What do you
what I
think?
can tell, it's just they're probably nearing their age,
Yep.
and some of them are a little bit, starting to get diseased,
Yep.
they're getting frail.
Yep.
But not all trees live to, 100, 200 years old,
No,
some
no.
of them only live to 50 or 60
Yep.
years old.
Do we have anything out there that, asks the public not to climb on them? I mean,
I do not think we do, but that's something that we could definitely look into.
especially some of the more fed up ones, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
There's names there. Find myself. Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Nice to see everybody tonight. I have a brief report, but I'm here to answer any questions you may have on planning and community development in North Plains tonight. As you saw from my report, we did receive an application from Greenlight on the 17th. I deemed the application incomplete on the 3rd, and I spoke with them tonight before your meeting, and it sounds like they'll be submitting their missing information tomorrow. So that'll probably get that application back on track. And we're still gonna try and see if we can make a November planning commission hearing. But it will, it's all gonna depend on the requirements for issuing our notices and how quickly we can get into the newspaper and if that aligns with our requirements to be able to get to November. So that'll be the hardest thing we have to deal with is the newspaper notice. But if we can make that work, then we should be able to make the November planning commission hearing for that. They did include a small component of commercial into their project. So the way the project is proposed right now, there's going to be 5 individual buildings. 4 of them will be for the 59 apartment units that they'll have. And then there'll be a standalone building for an office, which will be the mixed use component. And they're also calling their leasing office a portion of the mixed use component as well. It's certainly not at the square footage that the planning commission required the last developer to provide at. But this is the proposal that they have brought forward to the city. So one of the things that is a little bit of a challenge there when it comes to the mixed use and the way our code is written. Our code doesn't set a minimum or a maximum requirement for that mixed use component. There's no, you shall provide at least a minimum of X square feet of mixed use as part of the project. So there's no threshold for anybody to really rely upon to determine what that should be. So right now, the standard that we have has kind of been set through the previous decision that the planning commission and the city council provided for JT Smith, and that was about 8,700 square feet of commercial. So they're significantly below that, but that's the proposal that they have brought forward, and that's what they'll be presenting to the planning commission. We're still working with FEMA. As you know, we were actually hoping to have a work session with you and the planning commission tonight on FEMA. But it's been moving, not rapidly, but they're having meetings. They had a meeting last week. We learned a lot of stuff that was different than what we originally thought. There's going to be another meeting next week. And so things have been changing. We've been talking with them today. One of the things we found out today was, first, we didn't think we could do any changes to the model code. Now they're telling us that we can do changes to the model code. So when we heard that we couldn't, we thought we might go permit by permit. Because they kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of dumb it down, made it a little bit easier for the local jurisdictions to be able to do that review. Because many jurisdictions thought we'd have to hire a environmental specialist to have to go through the reports to determine, are they satisfying the rules? They said they've pared that down quite a bit, and they think that all the local governments will be able to do that now. So we're still assessing what is the best route for us to take with these two basic, there's three options, but really two are viable, the model code and the permit by permit option. We're also waiting for our city or for our legal counsel to get caught up a little bit on some of these issues as well, because they were away for a couple of weeks there at the end of October. So they have missed a few meetings, and there are some online webinars that are coming up through FEMA that they're going to attend. And so right now we're looking at doing that joint work session on November 18th with you, which doesn't give us a lot of time because we do have to make a decision by December 1st. And December 1st is a Sunday, so it would happen right before the Thanksgiving holiday. So we anticipate a need possibly for a November 25th special meeting with you and the planning commission. That might become the joint work session to go over the final information to find out which direction you folks would like to go. With that being said, we have found out at the last meeting that regardless of what pick'em we choose by December 31st, if we're working through that process and we don't like it, we can change to the other one. So it's kind of crazy, right? We got to make this decision by the 1st, but we're allowed to change it if we change our mind as we go through the process. The other thing that's a real problem for all jurisdictions right now is they're saying once we choose that pick'em on by December 1st, that's what needs to be on our books going forward, even though they're giving us to July 25th effectively to really do that. Well, we can't really do that, right? We have to go through the Oregon process, which is to do a legislative process to adopt a text amendment to move that into our code. DLCD has shared that with FEMA, and FEMA seems to not want to hear that. And so we're waiting for legal counsels to kind of give us a little guidance on that time period between December 1st and July 25th. What if somebody were to come in? How would we handle that application if we don't have anything adopted, at that time? And I think many jurisdictions are struggling with trying to understand that. So we're hoping to, between now and the 18th, learn some of that information so we can bring that back to you. But there's a lot of moving parts with this right now, and it's really unfortunate that we have to make a decision by December 1st, but we're getting some of these details right now going up to that deadline. So it's been a little frustrating.
They're getting a lot of pushback from a lot of cities from across the state.
Pardon?
They're getting a lot of pushback from cities across the state. Bill, I didn't.
Very much so.
And that, the FEMA presentation.
I attended part and then I went and looked to the infrastructure
Okay,
provision and funding one as well.
okay. Rob, did you?
Yes.
Was there any new news there, presented?
Not really,
Probably more
Mayor.
Complaint session, right?
Well, the coordinator for that meeting was the planning director in Philemon County.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He seemed well informed, but there was a lot of frustration expressed that this was moving too quickly, and it wasn't giving especially smaller jurisdictions an opportunity to deal with it the way it should be dealt with,
Sure.
in a thoughtful, informative way.
Mhm.
And secondly, concerns about being able to involve the public with these short timelines. It's almost like, my opinion, strictly mine, not the cities, but the goal one of the state's many goals is public involvement, and it will be difficult with the short timelines unless they modify them.
Absolutely.
The one thing we heard about the December 1st deadline, and as you may know, the governor did put in a letter to FEMA asking them to move that deadline. At the last meeting on Wednesday, they informed us that that deadline cannot be changed because it came out of the lawsuit. It was actually mandated by the judge who ruled on it. And they got that date as a result of that ruling. So they're telling us that date, it has to happen by that date in terms of a pick'em. In terms of their other dates, everybody has asked a lot of great questions in these meetings, and really what we've been getting is, we need to run every question up the flagpole with our attorney before we can answer those questions. And so even trying to go to their online email process to ask questions that way, they've not responded to any of our questions because they're telling us that every question that's coming in is going to legal first before they respond. And so getting information has been painful and frustrating. So and I just want to correct myself. I said November 25th is the joint work session. It will be the 18th. for the joint work session, but then we may hold a special meeting with you folks on the 25th, just to get any final direction from you on which direction you'd like to go, for the pickup. That may come out of the 18th, so we might not need the 25th, but just want to let you know that the 18th would be the joint work session. The 25th would just be a special session with you folks if we feel it's necessary to get any final direction.
Okay.
And that's usually, and that would be if they make any changes between the 18th and then. Bryn Hill, just to update you real quick on Bryn Hill. They have recorded phase 5, so they are starting to submit building permits now for the final phase of that project. And they've also submitted their type 2 design review application for the phase 4 park, which we have approved. That was submitted a while back, so we did approve that. We did receive a couple comment letters on that application from neighbors near that park. And one thing that we heard is it sounds like there's some misinformation being delivered to the future buyers of these homes in terms of what will be in these parks. One person indicated they were informed that it would be a dog park. Another person informed us that they thought it would be a nature park. As you folks probably know, that was never intended for Bryn Hill to have a nature park or a dog park. So we're a little concerned that, misinformation is being shared out there. We're not quite sure how it's happening. From what we've heard, it could be some of the sales agents possibly just sharing what they want to say because it might help them sell the property, which is frustrating if that's happening. But we are trying to keep people informed of what's happening out there, trying to let them know how the parks get reviewed and get approved and that they can participate in that process. And so, we do have one more park coming on board, which is the phase 5 park. We have been in conversations with with Lennar about that park. And so we're continuing to kind of flush some of the issues out with them, but I think it's moving in the right direction for that park. And we did share with Lennar that we're frustrated that there's this misinformation out there about the parks. So they're trying to do something, we understand, to try and fix that problem. So hopefully that will get resolved before the phase 5 park comes in for review. The last thing with Bryn Hill that we've had some problems with is their sales signage. They've been putting that signage up pretty much anywhere they want. As you may have seen, they like to put it at the intersection of Glencoe and Commercial. They like to put it at North and Glencoe. They like to put it along North. And the problem with their signs is they're putting them in the right of way. And it's just not allowed to be in the right of way. So we've removed the signs. As a matter of fact, I think Dustin went out there on Friday perhaps and removed some signage. And he came into work today only to find that those signs were back in the locations that he took them from. And so we're going to meet with him on Wednesday and do a little walk through the community and share with them what our code allows. They're actually allowed 2 signs up to 32 square feet. And they can put it at the model home or they can put it somewhere outside of the right of way, to let people know where the model home is. Essentially, that's what this is about, is to encourage people to find the model home. I don't think they'll have a problem finding that subdivision if they turn down north. It's pretty prominent, but they could put one at their entry if they wanted to, say model home, down this road or something like that. So we'll meet with them and hopefully resolve that problem. So Dustin doesn't have to go around and collect all these signs out of the right of way all the time. Lastly, as you may have seen, and I think it came up in maybe one of Councilor Smith's comments, but there were a lot of shipping containers that were parked over on the Highland Court property there between McDonald's and Veterans Park. And so we did reach out to the property owner there, which is Justin Spearing, the owner of Global Electric, and let them know that, you could potentially keep those there if you got a temporary use permit. We'd allow you to keep them there for up to 4 months. But because you have a floodplain on your property, they would have to be moved, towards the street to get out of the floodplain, or we would allow you to move them to your property on the cottage, which is zone light industrial, and let you store them there. And we would not require the temporary use permit if you did that. That seems to be his choice. He has moved the bulk of them over to his property on cottage. But we still have a gravel pile out there that's in the floodplain, and he still has a construction trailer out there. At least it was on Friday. I have not been down there today. He may have moved that perhaps, but we're going to work with him to just get that last stuff moved off of the site there. The gravel wouldn't be a problem per se, but it's in the floodplain based on the maps that we have. And so the floodplain in that east end of his property comes up to where if you're pulling into Veterans Park and you park in the parking stalls that face to the south, those parking bumpers are where the floodplain ends. and it carries across his property. And so that pile of gravel is in that shaded area right now. It's up to him how he wants to handle that. He could get a permit for fill, but I don't think he wants to do that. So I think he'll end up moving it probably to the cottage property. But that's all I have. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions? Counselor Sheldon?
I have one, and I don't think it falls under public works now. This could be a dual question. But I'm interested in what Bryn Hill's doing with North Avenue or not doing
With what?
with North Avenue.
With North Avenue.
Yeah, why are we're going into the season where I'm not sure why this isn't done yet. I want to know more about why it isn't done.
Yeah, what I understand at that east end of North End that they've been working on, the holdup has been the franchise utilities addressing their utilities in that right away and getting them relocated. That's been part of the delay, but I don't deal with that end of things. And like I said last week, I think what we need to add to these staff reports is bringing 3J Engineering into this so they can update you because they're dealing with that on a daily basis for us. But do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I've been dealing directly with the utility. They're going back and forth with my gosh, what is the name of the company there? Oh my gosh. The contractor that's working for
NEI.
Lennar. Yes, NEI. I don't know why I was thinking NA, but NA was working for the public works facility. NEI, yes. But yes, I've been happy with NEI. So they've been going back and forth with them telling NEI, we need a traffic control from you. Like, what do you, can we piggyback off with you, or do we need a right-of-way permit from the city? And I'm like, well, if it's a relocation underneath the development, then you do not need another right-of-way permit from us because it's under you. But they kept on going back and they were kind of stalling for weeks. And it's, and my, I don't really want to speculate too much, but it's kind of a stalling tactic on the utility side. And so it's pretty much NEI is ready to go. They've been ready for a while, but they can't.
Well, I want to know
Finish.
what lever we need to pull to make that happen. It's ridiculous that it's basically, there's nothing happening there.
The lever that we have, we can't use. If this was a capital improvement project in which, this was a city project, we could tell utilities to move. And we can tell them they need to do it by a certain point, but because it's a driven project, we do not have that leverage.
Okay, that sounds more like a legal question to me.
Yeah, I'll follow up with Brian Feeney too and try and get you a follow-up response on that so you can get a little more detail. But I do agree with what Dustin said. The problem is it's not a public project. We're a little stuck on our abilities. And we have also talked with Brian about maybe doing some updating of some of our codes and policies and whatnot, because right now, if somebody were to come in with a project and submit plans to Brian for review and say they just stall, they kind of make they do a red line review and then they don't respond right away and then something comes in and it drags out for a year or more. But maybe in that year, we've adopted a new standard that we would like to have implemented. We don't have anything that says that if you don't do something in a certain amount of time, you're expired, and you have to resubmit. And so little things like that, I think we could clean up. And maybe we could also address this issue too, to see if we can get a little more teeth into that. So these developers know they have to complete things within a reasonable amount of time. Because we don't want these things taking forever, obviously, right? Okay.
Counselor Payton?
Well, thank you so much for the update. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
I do have a quick question. After looking at the land use applications and the building permits, those sorts of things. And I get this question periodically from folks in the community when you have solar companies going knocking door to door, exterminators going knocking door to door and that sort of thing. And some folks they get really upset about those door-to-door sort of sales, pitches. Are they coming into City Hall saying, hey, this is what we are going to be doing in your community?
They do not do that. At
So
least
they do
they,
not get
I
a,
can respond to that, because
Yes.
they need to have a peddler's permit.
okay,
And they don't. The only way we know they're out there is unless public work staff sees them, or if residents let us know, and residents never let us know.
okay,
I see it, on the favorite place to post everything, Facebook. They need to contact the city. We'll send somebody out to find those people that are going door to door. Give them the application, tell them if they don't have it, returned to us within 5 business days. And pay the fee, then if we see them out again. They get a visit from the officer that's on duty.
yeah, I just know that it bothers some people and it doesn't bother others, right? But there's a process that I know that's in place. It
Yes.
should be in place, and residents should feel comfortable sending an email to info@northplains.gov
Absolutely.
or something like that.
We
just
count
say,
on them to do it.
yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
this is what's happening.
Yeah.
So, I just want to make sure that folks know that they have an option, to
Well,
report that.
yeah, and I have read some of the comments. I mean, some of these peddlers are very pushy and very rude, and they'll knock on doors that say no soliciting and all that stuff. We have to hear about it from somebody, because we don't know what's going on unless a resident contacts us. So,
All right.
Yeah, it sounds like they've been spending a lot of time in, Brim Hill. We have received a tremendous amount of solar applications for the Brim Hill neighborhood. Also for the Sunset Ridge neighborhood, we've received a lot of AC installs, for Brim Hill. And that seems to be where they're focused right now, and so, maybe we might need, I don't know, with the weather changing, it might change a little bit, I don't know. But, it's hard to find them, you know, you kind of have to be calling the neighborhood.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Finance Department.
Finance Department, thank you, Mayor. As you can see in the packet, there is not a finance department report for this month yet. You'll be getting that later this week. I ordinarily wait to do that, really start that the week of sending that to you all, because we have invoices and payments that are still kind of being tallied up for the month prior. Those are in, but being out of the office at the League of Oregon Cities Conference and getting some last week and getting some things done prior. And the topic of that will be the URA meeting that will be happening this evening. That report is not yet done. What I will report to you though, from the finance, what isn't in that, well, I won't need to put in the report because I'll discuss it this evening, kind of one of the big projects we've been working on here recently, interdepartmentally. But finance and administration is really the service provider to the other departments. And on the topic of the Public Works building, we've been working interdepartmentally on figuring out and kind of nailing down an operating budget for the building. We haven't really kind of nailed down a detailed final budget for what that's going to look like for operating it under a variety of move-in scenarios. We're also we've added to that the task of holistically looking at what our space needs are for a variety of different things. When we move staff over to the Public Works building and we move public safety over to the Public Works building, that creates room for other things. And we know we have need for storage space. We're kind of keeping and archiving things in different places, and to consolidate that as one of those dominoes of moving things around. We're kind of exploring, cost benefit of how to approach that. So we should have that nailed down in the next few weeks, but we'll kind of be able to figure out how exactly they potential move in over there. Kind of having a full picture of what we're dealing with in terms of costs, and then just what's the operating cost for City Hall, existing City Hall on a monthly basis, and figuring that out. So that's kind of the new big project in the last couple of weeks that we've kind of tried to drill down in. So without the regular report, and I haven't seen anything in any of the numbers that look unusual. When I do that staff report for you all on finance, I'm going through all the account numbers, all the expense accounts and all the revenue accounts, as I add things up. So if anything looks unusual, I'll know. It's kind of takes a little bit of time. So anyway, I'll stand for any questions on the finance side of things, barring that information you don't quite yet have.
Councilor Pippen?
Bill, I think the only question I really had was if you could just provide an update with the fuel tax bond and how sales are going. I know we had a previous discussion regarding the space age, potentially being down to change tanks. Can you provide an update with?
Thank you, Councilor Pippen. I haven't gotten to the transportation bond fund revenue. I don't have an answer to that yet, is what I'm saying. We haven't gotten any communication from Space Age that would indicate any more specifics about what their plans are and when the numbers will take a dip with any closure and tanks being replaced. We haven't gotten any indication there's anything unusual about this month in terms of fuel sales, but I don't have the final numbers on that yet for the month of September. So it's a stay tuned sort of thing in the report I'll be sending to you.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Thank you, Bill. All right. Next up is new business, the city manager agreement update. I'm going to turn this over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Mayor. As everyone is aware, the council had made a decision to support negotiating with Bill to my right as city manager, and I think it was an excellent choice. And the mayor and Bill have been finishing up a contract, but both traveled to the League of Cities meeting, and so some things just didn't get done as we had hoped. There's also an interesting side to that, negotiating that contract, and that is that the city's code describes Bill's duties as city manager, but it's outdated. And it, for example, lists that he's in charge of planning for the city. We have a planning manager, and so the city attorney is working on our code so that the code matches what is likely to be in the contract for Bill's duties. So that detail is important because actually the code determines it's taken first in priority, so that whatever would be put in the contract, if it's not consistent with the code, then the code prevails on this. So it'll probably be another week or so, or probably either a special meeting or the next meeting that the contract would be finalized and brought to the council. As far as what I've been working on has certainly been that helping with the recruitment, the relook, the urban growth boundary expansion process. We just, so that everyone knows, there is now a page on the city's website that is compiling anything that has been produced by the relook committee or produced by staff or our consultants. So folks can walk through at their own convenience and have access to the documents that are there. And as we produce them, they will be added to that site. Since my time is limited as interim city manager, I'm trying to finish up projects. But know that if Bill has questions after I leave, I will answer the phone and in a timely manner. So happy to help Bill be successful in the community. Also, the Joint Water Commission contract expires at the end of the year, and I was hoping to close that out as we went, but in looking at the current contract that we're operating under, there were some issues that were outdated and needed updating. And so I did retain the services of a water attorney, as I call him, and I utilized him in Cornelius when I was there. He made some recommended changes to the contract, which I passed on to the director of the Joint Water Commission. They're looking at it now, but there will be some modifications to it, and the Joint Water Commission meets only quarterly. And so unfortunately, the timing was such that we missed the JWC quarterly meeting, and so that will likely happen in January. And in writing, Hillsborough has agreed to voluntarily extend the contract, so the water will be flowing to North Plains, and we won't have to worry about empty water pipes. The city of Hillsborough was very gracious about it, and this should be a successful completion. Also, as city manager, I've looked over a lot of shoulders on the ASR work, and you got the report tonight, and I would agree there's some more work that needs to be done, but it looks positive at this point. I've also spent some time following up on things with Public Works building, and I think the council and public will be very pleased with it. It's a comfortable facility, a nice looking one, but seems to have been efficiently produced and will use the space well. I guess that's about it from me, unless there are any questions.
Any questions for Councilor Papen?
Thank you, Bill, or I'm sorry, not Bill, Rob, just a quick question just regarding the source of our water. Do we receive our water from, I know it's from the Joint Water Commission, but is it from the city of Hillsborough? And the reason why I'm asking is I'm just thinking about the fluoride treatment that's on the ballot for Hillsborough, and I was just curious if that would be something we would be affected by.
Well, something, Councilor Papen, you may not be aware of is that Tualatin Valley Water District, and the water all emanates from the Barney Reservoir up in the coastal mountains. That is owned by the city of Hillsborough, but the Joint Water Commission is made up of Hillsborough, Tualatin Valley Water District, Forest Grove, and Beaverton, city of Beaverton. And they comprise a JWC, Clean Water Services is also a member of that, but primarily to have water to flush the Tualatin and keep the water fresher than it would be naturally. And every year, a managing partner is selected among the board to manage the Joint Water Commission. And since it was originally Hillsborough's wholly, Hillsborough is selected every year, but it could be any of the other members too, but it's usually a very smooth transition each year. And having served on JWC, it's an obvious choice, I think. But the water comes from Barney Reservoir, and it's the same drinking water at that point that's in Beaverton and also in Tualatin Valley Water. So, but in the case of Beaverton, for example, it's fluoridated by the Aloha campus of Intel. I don't remember where Tualatin Valley Water adds fluoride to theirs, but it all comes out of the Joint Water Commission treatment plant without fluoride. And then if Hillsborough votes yes to support fluoride, then they have to figure out where to do it. What we did in Beaverton, when we went to a vote to add fluoride, it was advisory only at that point, with the caveat that if the vote was strong enough, the council would likely vote to fluoridate the water. And my recollection, and I may be off on this, but the year we did it, when I was serving in Beaverton, I think it was a 57% yes vote. And the council felt, as did I, it was a strong enough number that we did end up fluoridating the water. But I would guess the way it's being done today, if I don't know if North Plains didn't want it, what would be the case? There may be a way to do it so that if Hillsborough wants fluoridated water and North Plains doesn't, then there would have to be a way to figure it out.
And it would be a couple of years before something like that would come online anyway, correct?
How many years?
Like a couple of years for Hillsborough, if Hillsborough voted
Oh,
yes.
I would guess so, and the council's still gonna have to make a decision.
Dustin,
So I have a little bit of inside information about that, and that's if it passes, that we've got about a 7-year buffer, a 5 to 7 year buffer. Because they still have to design it, because the vote from the people isn't a vote to fluoride, it's a advisory vote, and so it will still go into more discussions after that, and then they will have to design and build everything and then come up with a plan. And so it most likely, the city of Hillsborough would not be fluoridated for another 5 to 7 years at the earliest, is the information that I was given from JWC.
thank you. Thank you very much. Council Pippin?
Okay, well, that answers my question. Thank you so much.
Good information. Any other comments, questions for Rob? And so, just to be clear, as far as the city manager agreement, we will be bringing that back, either through, an emergency meeting or because we have Bill coming online on November 1st.
Yes.
So we will have to square up an emergency meeting to be able to review that and get that, signed.
Yes,
Okay,
but the Joint Water Commission won't meet till January.
right.
So you do have some breathing room and the commitment from Hillsborough that until we are able to vote on and support a new agreement, they'll willingly provide water under the same condition.
Perfect. All right, any council reports? I think Councilor Smith, you said that you wanted to talk about.
Yes, number one, so nobody gets confused. Library board is third Wednesday, 6 p.m. So you got that information already? Because I was confused too. So I emailed. There was a question asked if we're going to do a mixer in December again, like we did last year. And get together with the city council and
Oh,
heads.
I don't know.
Have been some other things going on, hasn't been discussed at City Hall.
They brought that up, so I'll report that. They're looking at doing a volunteer project as a group. And I think they discussed the food bank. They repaired the library box over in Sunset Ridge too, it's back up and running. Oh yeah, this has nothing to do with that, but the grand opening, I just want to remind you, is this Saturday for the axe throwing and miniature golf. So I'm not sure if it's supposed to be when you're playing miniature golf and you have got axes. But it'd be interesting to see what they've got going there. And lastly, Chili Cook-Off. There are 21 different people entering, which is huge. This place was overflowing with people. I think everybody had a great time.
All right. Councilor Pippin?
Thank you. I will keep mine short and sweet because Dustin already took a little bit of my thunder, but I attended the Parks Board as ex officio last week. And a couple of things we had discussed during that time was creating a reserve fund to potentially cover the cost of a replacement flag for the Veterans Memorial Park. That is something that Bill had mentioned. There's already a specific fund set up for that, but just knowing that the cost of a flag is close to $2,500, need to have some sort of cadence for that. We talked about the trees, of course, around Jesse Mays. Cindy Hurst from the chamber came to talk about the Veterans Day celebration happening on November 11th, that she's requested a flyover. And I think in conclusion, the Parks Board aligned to come to city council meetings to share a report for Parks Board quarterly. So that'll be something we'll be looking forward to as a board, to look forward to with the Parks Board. And with that, I will pass it back to you.
Thank you very much. And that's. So I attended, the League of Oregon Cities conference last week, and, it was held, in Bend, and it snowed. It was lovely. We didn't get a whole lot of snow, but, we saw it from the window. It was an incredible, conference. There's always a wealth of information there, and folks networking and sharing information. And so what I am going to do is I'll put together sort of a summary of the workshops that I attended and any types of resources, and get that emailed out to you all, so you have that information. And that's all that I have. Look here, anyone else? Nope. Okay, well, with that then, if there's nothing else for the city council meeting, I'll go ahead and close the meeting at 8:22.